Hello, everyone. Welcome to our SABA, or South Asian Bar Association of North America Foundation Nonprofit Roundtable. Our Nonprofit Roundtable series started off at first, we called it our Grantee Roundtable, but we really wanted to broaden exposure and really assist this community, this foundation community, with communicating with one another, asking questions and helping shape and guide one another, and also having this common connection through the foundation. So we are very happy to have you all here today for the first SABA Foundation Nonprofit Roundtable for 2024, and this very important topic. And that is going to be, advance the next slide here, our SABA Foundation grants process and grants writing tips and tricks. So this is something we believe was very important. We have for a number of years been providing grants to our communities, and we wish to really demystify the process of these as it pertains to the foundation, and to really provide everyone here with guidance and to allow everyone to have a forum for discussion. So we, again, thank you for being here. And I just wanted to introduce myself, and then my co-presenter will introduce herself as well. My name is Ritu Singh. I am the SABA Foundation president this year. I've been a trustee for the past 6 years with the SABA Foundation. I am definitely, I've seen quite a bit. I'm very happy to be here, and I wholeheartedly believe in the good work that the foundation does to support all of you, our community business partners. So with that, I'm going to, and a little bit of background information. So we are a fully volunteer organization. And in my day job, I am a intellectual property attorney focusing on patent law. I work at a law firm in Cincinnati, Dinsmore and Shoals. So it's definitely a passion project to be volunteering as a trustee on this organization, and happy to do so. So with that, Priya, if you would like to, just so everyone knows, Priya is our grants committee chair. If you wanted to introduce yourself.
Sure, thanks, Ritu, and nice to have everyone on today's call. My name is Priya Prasad. As Ritu mentioned, I'll be chairing the grants committee this year. This is my second year as a trustee on the SABA Foundation, and I served on the grants committee last year, and it's a really exciting, I think this foundation does a lot of great stuff, but grants in particular are a really exciting part of what we do. Reading all the impactful grants that come in and making the difficult decision of awarding the grant. So excited to be with you all today. My day job, I work for the U.S. Department of Commerce. I work on energy policy matters. So a little different from the type and scope of the grants that come in to us, but looking forward to chatting more today with you all.
Thank you, Priya. So went a little too fast there. So before we jumped into the grants, we wanted to really introduce the foundation to you. What we do, who we are, how, a bit of the historical context and where we are now. So what we do, the SABA Foundation, we're the charitable arm of the South Asian Bar Association of North America. So we are two separate legal organizations, but we work hand in hand and in partnership. And we're a 501c3 organization. We support access to justice for our South Asian communities in North America to advance causes that are important to the communities that we serve. And that's how we work with all of you, again, our community business organization partners. I'm going to ask for those who recently joined, if you can mute yourselves so there's no background noise. There will be opportunity towards the end for questions and to be interactive. So thank you very much. So a little bit of history and context. Before there was the SABA Foundation, there was SABA North America, and members of SABA North America, which themselves, that organization was formed very early in 2000s, recognized the need for the charitable arm and formed the foundation. And this was really to dedicate it to these goals. And I do want to read through this to have everybody understand what the background is and how this can assist when you look into applying for foundation grants. So our goals were to encourage philanthropy, promote fund and encourage the professional growth and development of the Asian legal community in North America, support research on issues relevant to the South Asian legal community in North America, and to educate the South Asian community in North America on the legal system and access to justice while fostering confidence in the rule of law. Access to justice is a common theme, both when we formed and now, as you'll see through the presentation. So with that, a little bit of background and question you might have is, when do the SABA Foundation grants, when does this grants application go live? And Priya, I'm going to turn it to you.
Right. So as the slide says, March 1, so that's just 10 days or so from now, the applications will go live. So part of why we wanted to have this presentation before is so that you all are thinking about what materials you need to get together and gather so you're ready to apply as close to March 1st as possible. And we'll talk about the timeline for in the next couple of slides. So today we'll talk first about the timeline. March 1, we know application goes live, so we'll walk you through the rest of the phases. But with that, we wanted to also share a little bit of the history of the foundation and the grants process. Ritu alluded to some of the foundation's goals and objectives, but we'll talk more specifically about the grants. The bulk of the presentation will get into the grant itself, so we'll share some tips for impactful grant writing based on quote unquote successful applications that we've seen in the past. And we'll we have our application ready to go live. So we'll actually do a live walkthrough and show you the questions that'll be on the application. So by joining this, you'll have an advantage in terms of being able to preview the questions that we have in the application. And then we'll conclude with some next steps that you can take between now and March 1st. So March 1, the application period opens. The applications go live on our website, and Ritu will walk you all through the website and where to look for the application. We have a hard deadline of April 14th. So this is about a month and a half you have to get your applications in. There won't be any extensions. So part of why we wanted to keep that firm deadline is you can see everything is really stacked. So that gives the committee about a month and a half to review the applications and get them finalized. And after that, July 12th, that for those of you who are tracking, you may have this date already on the calendar. There's a foundation benefit that happens alongside the SABA North American Conference, which is happening in Toronto. So this year, the foundation benefit event is July 12th, and that's where grant recipients will be formally recognized. So just a little bit of history and context of the foundation and grants. We've already mentioned the foundation being a 501c3 charitable organization. The mission statement for the foundation is on our website, but we wanted to extract a little bit of it so you can keep in mind, what we're doing. And Ritu kind of drove home this point, which is the access to justice is kind of a key part of the mission and objective for the foundation. But you can see it's through grant making and other programs that we do this. So that's where the grant application comes into the overall objective. And then, there, of course, because of our organization, there is this nexus to South Asian communities as well as North America. So all those pieces you'll see in our mission statement, and you'll see reflected also in the nature of the questions that are in the application itself. Let's go on to the next slide. Great. So there are a series of types of services that your organizations may be providing to the South Asian communities where you're serving. And this could be domestic violence intervention, immigration rights, prevention and support of victims of hate crimes, discrimination, racial profiling, community access to justice at large. And we've listed these out as being in scope of what our grants, our community-based grants being eligible for. And we'll have this language sort of throughout the application and on our website, so you can keep in mind, which category or categories does your organization fit into. Now, there are a lot of other factors that we consider when we review the applications. One is whether your organization has applied for the grant before. And if so, how many times, and also whether it's been awarded the grant before. Just because an organization has been awarded in the past doesn't preclude it from being considered this year, especially if circumstances have changed, there's an additional need. So don't be discouraged to not apply if you have applied in the past and haven't been selected, or you've applied in the past and been awarded. So both are factors we consider. And then finally, to help ensure the diversity of the applicants for a given year, we want to also take a look at what geographic areas you're serving. So that's one of the questions as well that will be included in the application, whether it's maybe you're close to where the foundation event is happening, which is in Toronto, or maybe you're close to a South Asian North America chapter. But that, regardless of where you are, we also want to make sure we're getting good geographic diversity of organizations, as well as diversity of issues that your organizations are serving.
Thank you,
Ritu,
Priya.
back to you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So that was hopefully, you're getting a little bit more insight, again, both the foundation and what we're driving towards, but a little bit more history about the foundation. We have, beyond the community-based nonprofit organization grants that we have provided a variety of other grants in the past and assistance of different educational programming and things of that nature, this itself being a virtual educational programming for our community partners. Some of these examples during COVID-19, in addition to the typical 4 to 5 grants we award in a year, we had also provided an additional amount of COVID-19 emergency relief grants for applicants. We've in the past also fundraised for a Night of Light fundraiser when there was India COVID-19 relief fundraiser that occurred in May 2021. We last year also had fundraising for a Pakistani flood relief effort. In fall of 2022, we provided grants to other programs beyond our typical grant program or grant selection program, such as SABA Cares with SABA North America, and providing pro bono and as well as community service activities at the annual SABA North America conferences and a variety of other efforts. So we stay busy, we try to stay busy and try to really give back to our communities. With that, we have put in a few links in this presentation because we do want to direct you to our website. We've definitely worked on it past few years to have it be a centralized resource for all of you. So if you wanted to see, for example, a listing of our previous grantees, you can find it at this website. So our sabalegalfdn.org is our website, and this grantees page over here. You can see, and we'll go through this in a moment, who our previous year grantees were, a little bit of information about each of these grantees. And then if you scroll down here with links to each of these grantees, you'll see who the grantees have been in previous years. And so I just find this personally a key resource as you're really trying to determine, who we provided grants to, what they've done, what these organizations, how they're shaped, where they're located. Would definitely advise you to come to this page to take a look. You can see, who our 2020 COVID-19 emergency grants, who those awardees were, and it's just I think a great and valuable resource. So going back over here, another page we want to direct your attention to is, I'm going to first describe these grants before going to this page, is a page that talks about, it's applying for a grant, but it talks about what type of grant you can apply for. So we have 2 different types of grants. One is our community grant, and we'll go into that in just a moment as to what that entails. Priya touched upon it, an area of, could be hate crimes, immigration rights, domestic violence, other community access to justice issues. Definitely presenting on programs that are touching on those issues can assist. And then our second name grant, so our name grant, is the Accenture Skills to Succeed grant that we work with Accenture to award. And that's really focused on programs that empower South Asian community members to gain skills and tools for gainful and rewarding employment. And also to mention the community grant, we do have a named grant for the Hitesh Barot awardee. He was a founder of the SABA Foundation and passed from unfortunate circumstances years ago, and since then he's very, well missed. We've, since his passing, been awarding a grant in his name as well. So the grants page, you're to go to this, apply for a grant page, and all of these, you'll find the tabs up here. There's a grants tab, and you can scroll down to these pages. You can see that the grant application will be coming soon. It's going to be launched on March 1st, so we invite you to come back to the page then. And it provides just some information about our grants. The one part I wanted to really help show you and have you focus on is this area down here that really talks about, what's the distinction between the community grant and the Accenture Skills to Succeed grant. You can apply to one or both of these grants. So if you have programs that you believe apply separately or in conjunction, just know that you can apply across the board for these grants. Okay, now this part of the presentation, we're going through what we generally showcase at the benefit and to honor our grantees and to really provide a little bit of information background. We aren't going to go into, we typically have probably some more quotes or videos, things of that nature. We do when we notify grantees, ask for that information to help showcase their organizations. But we thought this would be a great opportunity for all of you to see, who we selected last year for these grants. So we'll first talk about Daya, who we awarded the Accenture Skills to Succeed grant, and then My Family Services, who we awarded the Hitesh Barot community grant, and then our other recipients, SAYO, PARS Equality Center, and SALCO, the South Asian Legal Clinic of Ontario. And we'll, go through this high level, but just in this screen alone, we were talking, Priya had mentioned geographic diversity as well. Daya is based in Houston. My Family Services is based in Michigan. SAYO is based in Boston. PARS Quality Center is based out in Bay Area of California. And then SALCO's in Ontario, Canada. So a little bit of information first about Daya, who won the Accenture Skills to Succeed grant. So Daya, it's a community-based organization that strives to empower South Asian survivors of domestic and sexual violence in the greater Houston area through culturally specific services and education efforts. They presented in their grant application that in 2022, they served 640 clients of varying citizenship statuses, gender identities, religions, and sexual orientations, as well as survivors of all income levels. The goals for the Accenture Skills to Succeed grant that they applied for were to support one or more of these initiatives that they listed, and they were very on point in listing and providing the nexus towards how these are skills to succeed. Resume and job search clinics, foreign transcript evaluation, assistance with higher education applications, and financial assistance with vocational training, financial literacy training, and assistance with business plans, marketing plans, budgeting, and accounting. So this provided a very clear picture of how the communities they were serving were being presented with these skills to succeed, and hence they were awarded this grant. A quote from them was that financial freedom allows survivors to thrive. The funding from the SABA Foundation ensures that South Asian survivors can break barriers of language, culture, and immigration status when learning about America's financial system and building their own wealth. So it's one thing to know about an organization, but then get that exact focus and nexus. And it really was something that every single person on the grants committee could see how this linked to the specific Accenture Skills to Succeed grant. Our next awardee last year is My Family Services and they were named the Hitesh Barot awardee. And my, as an example, did apply for both of these grants. So that's where we want to mention that, go ahead if you believe you have programs that could apply towards both of these grants, please feel free to apply for that. So My Family Services provides community-based work focused in the Metro Detroit areas, and its mission is twofold. One, to provide holistic support services in the areas of abuse, violence, and crisis through confidential, culturally sensitive, victim-centered, and trauma-informed intervention, counseling, and referral services. And second, to raise awareness about the problems facing the South Asian community in Michigan. They mentioned in their application that they had then recently been awarded a grant from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services to run an empowerment program for victims and survivors of domestic violence, and that the funds that they would provide would help with professional training and community college programming. So that was, again, another grantee where we saw a nexus to both community access grants, and they were well regarded for Accenture Skills to Succeed as well. So, definitely encourage you to apply across the board. The next grantee is SIO. And so SIO, I'm going to describe a bit, but then also share a little story as being one of the grants committee when we reviewed SIO, how it was an educational experience for us as well. So SIO's mission is to empower Asian and other communities, in particular South Asian communities, to end female genital cutting, also the acronym it's known as is FGC, to create positive social change through dialogue, education, and collaboration based on community involvement. They mentioned that the funding they would be provided would help build programming around two of their primary goals: increased abandonment of FGC among future generations of girls, and a strong network of advocates educating their communities, leading to the social norm change of abandoning FGC. The reason I wanted to mention that there's even more of a story is that, as this came up for discussion with the grants committee, this increased awareness within the grants committee itself of how this is an issue more predominant in the South Asian communities than some of us were aware of. So the fact that SIO was not only educating across the board, but also within the foundation was something that helped promote them. So again, just having that level of specificity of what you're doing and how this advances causes. The next grantee was PARS Equality Center. And PARS has an interesting story as well, so a little bit of an introduction. PARS Equality Center is a nonprofit that provides immigrant communities legal and social services. The funding that they were requesting we would provide would go to support their Afghan support project, in particular their legal clinic in Fremont that helps hundreds of Afghans residing in the Bay Area. In the past, the foundation had actually, and this is a bit of the history, connected with PARS at an event in SABA, DC. And Priya, on this call as a trustee, Priya Prasad, helped organize a pro bono project thereafter with the PARS Fremont office at the 2022 SABA North America Conference in San Francisco. Several trustees and other SABA North America members attended that program and helped some refugees from Afghanistan in preparing their applications for temporary protected status in the United States. And the fact that we had that connection with them and they applied for this grant was something where it was fantastic to continue seeing them build and expand that program and grow. And then finally, last but not least, the last grantee recipient from 2023, SALCO, South Asian Legal Clinic of Ontario. So SALCO is a nonprofit legal clinic that was created to enhance justice for low-income South Asian communities and to advocate for systematic change to improve life outcomes for South Asian and other racialized and Indigenous people in Canada. They specifically, in their application, presented how the foundation grant would help fund their project to help South Asians in immigration detention understand their legal rights. The foundation awarded them this grant to support their project as they provided in their application, translate a self-help guide into languages spoken by the detainees, such as Punjabi and Urdu, that provides clients with information on their options and arguments to appeal decisions by immigration, refugees, and citizenship, Canada, and the Canada Border Services to revoke their immigration status, permanent or temporary, and remove them from Canada. These include applications like a pre-removal risk assessment, a federal court application for leave and for judicial review, and an application in the federal court for a stay of removal. So they were very, very thankful for the grant, and further, when they provided their quote, presented how, this was something that a lot of people are not aware of, that there's such a need for. They mentioned we were using it to translate the self-help legal material for the growing population of South Asians in Canada who are in immigration detention and facing removal. And they mentioned Canada is one of the few countries left in the world that allows for indefinite immigration detention until removal. So as you see, we had grantees diversity of projects across the board, all doing just solid work in the community. You recall this focus on access to justice issues and how we're helping advance causes in the South Asian communities that we serve. We want to provide you with these examples as a nexus and link as to how you can strengthen your own grant applications. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Priya to talk about tips for your grant writing.
Great, thanks, Ritu. So there's no one size fits all application and no one, perfect application, but these are just some general guidelines on best practices for impactful grant writing. We have now streamlined the application, so there shouldn't really be a question that you feel is a duplication of another question. So, first tip is to make sure you answer the question that you're asked concisely. You can imagine the grants committee is reviewing a lot of applications, and being able to get to the punchline of your organization or the program quickly and early in that first opening statement is really good. And we'll walk through the application, so we'll show you the order of questions, and we sort of review the applications in the question order for the application. Don't try to copy and paste similar answers. Like I said, the questions really should be distinct. So because of that, the answers really shouldn't be replicated as well. It also shows that you're not giving the time to an application if you're repeating questions or in some cases copying and pasting. So please do avoid doing that, and don't add extraneous information. There should be a catch-all question at the end, if there's anything missing. So please reserve anything beyond the asked question for that one. Know your audience and your organization. So through this presentation, we're hoping that you have a better sense, if you didn't already, about what this foundation what the foundation does, what are the two grants that you can apply for. You can also take a look at the website that has more information. So weave all of what you've heard today and what you see on our website when you're drafting your application and answering the questions. Going back to kind of point one, tell a compelling story. So I'm sure each of you is passionate about your organization or your program, and try to make that come through in the application. We don't interview applicants, so really this application is your one and only chance to shine and be impactful in how you tell your story. If you have the more specific you can be in terms of a project, I think it's also great, rather than just asking for, a community grant generally to cover expenses. If the ask is very general, unless you can really demonstrate, specific needs, it's less likely that it's gonna, be impactful. So that could mean you either are more specific about, what your grant could do more generally in the organization, or you can talk about one or two projects that can specifically be taken advanced in your organization as a result of having this grant. So just keep those in mind. And for those of you who've applied for grants before, there's really nothing unique here. It's really general best practices to grant writing, but we do get some applicants, and we have received applications in the past that don't really meet all of these criteria. So we just want to make sure that you're in the best position before the applications go live to think through what you want to do to tell your story. Okay, so now we're going to do a live walkthrough of the application itself.
One moment. There we go.
So for those of you who are familiar with Google Forms, the format of the application will be Google Forms. We found that this is helpful for us because we're able to filter through and review the applications in a very easy process. So it'll look similar to this. So we do have a lot of information in the top part. Most of this, actually all of this, can be found on our website, but just as a reminder, we've also put it up front here. So you'll see as Ritu scrolls down, we talk about the differences between the community grants and then the Accenture ones, and then also, what the foundation does. But all of this, again, should be on the website. So if you find it difficult to keep going up to the top, look at the website. The threshold questions are general ones. What's your organization's name? Give us a contact, a first and last name, if we need to ask any follow-up questions or contact you afterwards. Basic information about the organization, social media, number of employees, number of volunteers, budget in previous fiscal year and current fiscal year. This is also a sense, the employee question and also the budget gives us a sense of the size and growth of your organization. The mission statement. So in this case, you can, you could use the mission statement in your organization, but again, you want to make sure you're tying the mission to the grant that you're applying for. So you don't have to necessarily use the mission in its exact words on your website, from your website or other materials. You can tailor it to this grant. We'd like to have a title so we can refer to the program, whether we're talking about it during the application review process or after the fact. So just a little bit of a description of what the program, or if it's multiple programs, like the cluster would be that you're seeking this grant for. And then, as Ritu mentioned, you can apply for community, Accenture, or both. So this is actually a multi-check option. So the form will let you specify which box or both boxes. And then this next two questions are optional based on if you're applying for Accenture, answer this question. And likewise, if you're applying for community, answer that question. And so if you're not applying, the form will let you proceed without answering the questions. They're optional. The next question is generally about impact. How will this SABA Foundation supporting this program expand, impact the South Asian community, and how will it further the foundation's mission as well? We do give a rough amount so in the past and in this year, we're expecting grants to be in the order of about 6,500. So if this is your space and chance to basically expand on, what you're requesting, and this can be more than that. This is not a guarantee, obviously, that we can award more than that, but this is your chance to concisely describe what you're requesting and with some specificity. And then I would say the describe in detail is sort of, the impact. This is where you can be a little lengthier, but not too lengthy, where if you have a punchline, put it up front. We asked for dollar amounts of how it'll be allocated, and more detail about the project that you have in mind and how it'll be furthered by the grant. Measurement of success and objectives, as possible, right? In some cases, maybe a qualitative measure, but as much you can think about how you would measure that your objective was met by getting and being awarded this grant. Other sources of grants, and it's not, you're not precluded from being a recipient if you're getting other sources, but it's also good for us to know based on need. As well as if you've in the past for this one, for your current program, been awarded anything from a local SABA chapter, if you're near one, or the foundation, or both, as well as description if the answer is yes. Let's go down. I think this is, yeah. So the last one is a catch-all, which is an optional one. So in the form, you'll see the stars, the red asterisks. Those are mandatory questions, and there's a couple of optional questions sprinkled throughout, but we don't have too many. So this is really the form. We're not going to change this. It's been reviewed by the grants committee. So this form in its entirety will be what you see on March 1st if you go back to our website. Ritu, you want to take us home?
Sure. So with that, again, the website, this is the link right here, sabalegalfdn.org. Apply for a grant will be the place to find the application on March 1st. Again, apply by April 14th, no extensions, and we are wishing you the best of luck. With that, we wanted to allow all of you to have an opportunity to ask any questions, or, you know, was any information that you don't believe was touched upon. We wanted to have this be interactive. So we definitely invite anybody with questions. I know there was a question in the chat earlier about, will the materials be available? Yes, we have a YouTube site, so we'll be posting the recording of this session on that site, and there'll be a link via the webpage to get there. And we will be sending out this PowerPoint to those that registered for this event as well. So I invite any of you who would like now to either, you can unmute yourself or ask a question in the chat. And if there's any questions that arose from this presentation. I think we might have answered all questions.
I guess one,
Okay.
as this is Ravi. Nice to see
Hey,
you,
Ravi.
Ritu. The grant, just like from a best practice, that this is first time for me. When you said, like, you know, try to keep it brief, is there any character limits that you suggest just for some of those responses? Like, I'm just wondering, or if you don't want to share like past responses, is there a degree of brevity that becomes too succinct, I guess, because I get always asked about that.
That's a great question. So I don't, Priya, if you wanted to take that one first, I can always add on.
So Ravi, I don't think there's a hard and fast rule. I mean, as you said, there's a balance, right? You need to provide enough detail so we know what you're talking about, and you can only make, you need some space to make your case. I would say it's a judgment call. If you want a rule of thumb, I would say no more than a paragraph. If it gets into multi-paragraphs and it's very hard for us to read. We're basically, and full transparency, we take the Google form and it exports into an Excel file. So we have all of the applications in an Excel file that we can expand the cells, but that's really what we're looking off of. So I would say if it's multi-paragraphs, then it becomes very challenging for us to read.
Got it. Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Ravi. That's a great question. And there is a question in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and read it. I can answer that, but then also add on and to that how our grants committee operates. So the question is, does the fiscal year for SABA Foundation on our grants follow a specific cycle, or can you use your own? So the SABA Foundation, our terms are September 1st to August 31st, and that's when all of these decisions are made. So what is going to occur is we don't really ask so much in terms of fiscal year, but because we have this very limited time frame for grants, you're going to get the grant this year. So what historically occurs is that after grant recipients are announced, we will then gather some additional information from the awardees and then send out those grants. So it's all within, you know, this process that pretty much wraps up no later than about August, before the end of the SABA Foundation term on August 31st. So hopefully that addresses the question. Then we have another comment here about, well, thanks, saying this has been helpful. You'd like to know, besides the application, do you require any other supportive documentations or documents? The answer is no. There is that optional area. We actually did streamline this application because we did in the past like request if there's any additional documents you want to submit, you can, things of that nature. So as Priya had mentioned, we are going through a variety of applications. We wanted to like really get this down to what are the questions that really help formulate the committee, make their opinion. The only time we would ask for other documents is if someone was selected. At that point, we do tend to ask for quotes, videos, other materials, so we can help showcase you at the benefit as we are announcing grantees and also announcing and submitting, you know, for via social media, marketing pages, things of that nature. And then Ravi, going back to your question earlier on, Priya had mentioned being succinct, like you don't want to be, again, super succinct, but it's not a bad thing. Our role as a grants committee, and Priya can jump to this as my interpretation of how we operate from my own experiences, is that we take all of this material and we assign out each applicant to some champions to read through, and then we all as a team read through everything. But it's really on us to make those extremely concise statements so we can be able to compare the applicants. So I wouldn't worry so much about being super concise, but just focusing on that nexus. I agree with Priya's point of no more than a paragraph. Some of these answers, just as an example that I've seen, one of these, I might have had 3 or 4 paragraphs, but at the 4th paragraph, that's where the question was answered of what are you planning to do with this grant? So that applicant, if they had just used that last paragraph with this first paragraph, would have just helped aided the grant committee in terms of getting them to the answer right away, instead of having a lot of, and that's why we try to streamline the questions. So we're not asking for you to put the mission in the question about what you're doing, but separate. So I guess I just answered a lot of those right in a way. Priya, did you have any additional comments to add?
Yeah, I think you covered it, Ritu. One other thing, back to Jyotsna's question about fiscal year, I just wanted to, I know, I don't know if this is also part of your question. I think the only question right now on the application is operating budget in a fiscal year. So don't try to convert it into our fiscal year. Stick with the data you have. We're just basically trying to know, you know, what is your budget. So stick with your own timeline. You don't need to convert it into any other timeline. And then on the supportive documents, and this kind of goes to extensions, in the past, we've had people submit applications within the timeline, and then they ask to submit things after the timeline and say, that's not really extension because I already submitted it within the timeline. The April 14th is a hard date. So if you've already submitted it, there's no subsequent submissions after April 14th. And frankly, it would be much easier if you can just submit it once, because the form basically, if you can't go in and edit as far as I know. So I think once you submit it, that's it. It comes in as a response. So if you're trying to go back and submit it, your entry is multiple times, and then it's hard for us to know, well, which of the 2 do we need to take? And because some of the questions are required responses, you're going to start duplicating. So as much as possible, and I think Google Forms allows you to save it. Don't click submit until you're really ready to click submit.
So, and on that point, while we're saying hard deadline, April 14th, just the way I personally operate, I would calendar April 13th. So there's no risk of missing it. But the other question we have in the chat is, can an organization apply with the same project it submitted in the application previous year as the agency continues to work towards completion of this project? I would say yes. Personally, what I would indicate is don't do a copy and paste from your previous grant application. You know, focus on how this application has been streamlined, like what's key from the previous application, and try to add updates with how you have been advancing this past year that wasn't provided in the previous application. So really do help it be a current application. Because Priya, have you had some thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, I agree with that. No copying pasting from whenever you applied before, but also if you can indicate somewhere, and there is that question on, did you apply before? Did you get the grant before, and how was it used? That's your opportunity to own it, right? It's not going to be a ding against you that you received the application grant in the past, but if you make it more clear to us, the committee, what you did with it and how it was helpful, but you still need more for XYZ reason, that helps us make the case on your behalf as well.
And I guess I also wanted to just provide, sometimes it's like stories help, our stories on our end also help. So when we were talking about tips of, know your audience and what you're asking for, just some examples I can provide is we presented who's the SABA Foundation, who's SABA North America, had grants that were actually asking SABA North America for a grant or for pro bono assistance and things of that nature. So it's one of those know the audience and ask or answer the questions directly. So when we're asking what program are you going to be utilizing this for, that's just another example of, we had feedback calls with some for people who, any of the applicants who wanted a feedback call who didn't get a grant, we offered that opportunity. And one of the calls, well, the organization it's great to have those connections. Some of the feedback was, hey, we're a separate organization. We're happy to help facilitate, this pro bono referrals between us, SABA North America, and your organization. But that doesn't address the question of how are you going to utilize funds if awarded a grant. So that was another aspect. And with that, we are always very happy to connect and communicate with any of you. But because it's such a condensed cycle, we wanted to really stress the importance of utilizing the grant application to tell your compelling story, not going beyond that. I guess, Priya, do you have any other kind of like from the grants review? No, okay. Yeah, it was just something where I know that was something that helped prompt, and we've had discussions for a while about doing a session like this and posting it on the website so that we can address these questions before the feedback stage after someone might not be awarded a grant. I think, I'm not sure if there's any other questions. Oh wait, there is something in, well, just a thank you in the chat. Just keep it open for another 30 seconds or so for questions, but we definitely want to be cognizant of everyone's time. And of course, you can always reach out to us at the foundation with any questions that you might have. We welcome that communication. And we thank you all for your time today. There is a chat question. I just saw this. Are there any things you don't fund, like housing legal fees? So I think that goes towards that question of, the story and trying to avoid more administrative questions. It's not that we don't necessarily fund things, but I could tell you that if we're seeing that something is going towards paying a salary for, a free legal clinic or something of that nature versus like the project itself, it's not to say that that wouldn't be funded, but is there someone else with a more compelling story to fund a specific project that could be considered more programming rather than an administrative cost? I guess, Priya, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I agree. I think transparency around the breakdown of fees and how it would be used is helpful, but also tying it back to kind of the impact, right? So yes, maybe how housing legal fees are within the scope because they're part of the broader itemized list, but then making that nexus and connection would be critical.
And I think that was the last of the chat questions. So with that, unless anybody does want to brave the chat was a good forum, and Ravi, thank you for braving the voice question. But thank you all for being here today. We really appreciate you taking the time out to come and, learn more about the foundation, the grants. We definitely look forward to having you for, in our upcoming learning labs and grantee or nonprofit roundtables. We try to attempt virtual programming every 2 to 3 months. So definitely we'll post it out to your groups. If you're not getting the notifications, always reach out. We can get you added to our listservs. And we just thank you again. So Priya, any closing comments or remarks?
No, at the end of the day, the application shouldn't be too counterintuitive. We tried to make the questions pretty simple. And the best practices we shared are not also unique to our grant. So just tell your story, I think, and if you're passionate about what you do, try to make that come across. One other thing I'll just say is, if you have friends, colleagues, others that may be eligible for one or both of these grants, please do spread the word. We will be sharing more about the applications going live through our own platforms, but if you know of others who may not know about this foundation grant, please do share the news.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm going to go ahead and stop recording now.